On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Let's roll. 7:07 here on O'Connor and Company. Thanks for tuning in. Good Lord. Wow, where did this radio voice come from, Julie? What is happening? It's the Morning Zoo here on WMAL. Wow. I'm sorry. I got all very hyped up. I just got another cup of coffee. I'm ready to go. I hope you are too. At 8:05, former New York Congressman and candidate for governor Lee Zeldin will join us. And at 8:35, Adam Credo, one of the best reporters, fine young men here in Washington, D.C., writing for the Free Beacon. He's been all over the Biden administration's outrageous, lackadaisical, what's the best word to describe it?
Irresponsible.
Yeah, but they're partners with the Iranian regime.
That's right.
They're propping them up. They're
Complicit.
supporting them. They're complicit.
There we go.
And Adam Credo has all the receipts. We're going to speak with Adam coming up at 8:35. I'm Larry O'Connor. That's Julie Gunlock, or as a fine caller on the Mark Levin show last night described you and everyone else on the show.
Three adorable chick babes that are on with
Yeah, that's
I love
right.
her.
That's
I'll
Susan.
take it.
Susan from upstate New York, who listens here across the internet every morning, who calls you and Patrice and Mercedes the three adorable chick babes.
I love it. I've been called worse. Let me just tell you.
Well, you and me both. Joining us right now, lead counsel at the National Legal and Policy Center, Paul Kamenar, joins us to talk about. Let's start with this. First of all, good morning, Paul. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me.
I just wrote about this. I've been all over. I'm so sick and tired of hearing the media call this a hush money thing. If you would ask the normal person on the street, what is Donald Trump facing? What criminal charges is he facing? They would probably say, oh, yeah, well, he made an illegal hush money payment to Stormy Daniels. That's not what's in question here. The payment was perfectly legal, wasn't it, sir?
Absolutely. It's basically a non-disclosure agreement. Those are made every day. And,
the kind of thing that NBC News has to pay the victims of Matt Lauer's behavior. That's a non-disclosure agreement payment. Yeah.
Right. There's nothing illegal about it. And what's happening here is the prosecutor, Alvin Bragg, is trying to bootstrap a misdemeanor, wrong bookkeeping type violation of New York law, which, by the way, the statute of limitations ran on that. He's saying, well, how am I going to make this into a felony case? And his crazy theory is that, this money that Trump gave this through Michael Cohen helped his campaign, and therefore we have a illegal campaign contribution to his own campaign. Well, what's wrong with that is both the Justice Department and the Federal Election Commission, which has jurisdiction over federal election laws, looked at this and they took a pass. There's no violation. But if you believe his theory, it still doesn't make any sense, because what they're saying is that this payment, hush money payment, whatever you want to call it, constituted an in-kind contribution to Trump's campaign.
Right.
But wait a minute, folks. The Supreme Court has long ruled that a candidate can give unlimited amounts of money, in-kind contributions, whether it's computers or whatever, to his own campaign. That's not a violation. And even if it is, the FEC rules are that the campaign has to give the money back to the donor. So what we got here is that they're saying, wait a minute, the money came out of Trump's left pocket, and now it's got to go back into his right pocket. Where's the crime, folks? It's not here. It's almost like the tax case they went after him for that Letitia James. There was no victim there. So this whole thing is really a house of cards that should be dismissed right away.
I want to ask you about some of the news coming out of yesterday when Trump came out of the trial or came out of the courtroom and said, the judge is saying I have to be there every single day, and he may not even allow me to go to my son's high school graduation. There really does seem to be a level of cruelty here. Can you talk a little bit about that? And is that unusual? Because it seems especially punishing to require him to be there again each day, and also to miss some significant family events.
Yeah, well, first of all, the judge here is totally biased. But keep in mind, he should have been recused a long time ago. He gave money to Biden, campaign contributions. He gave money to what's called the Progressive Turnout Project, which is to get out the votes for the Democrats. His daughter runs a consulting company that's making millions of dollars working for Biden, working for Adam Schiff. And he said, I can be fair and impartial, not to mention, of course, the jury, which is over 85% Democrat, almost as bad as here in D.C., which is 92%. He can't get a fair trial. But with respect to the way that he's being treated, the gag order is really what's unconstitutional here. He hasn't quite ruled yet about allowing Trump to go to his son's graduation. I think he's going to rule on that the next day or two. But he denied him allowing to come here in D.C. for the Supreme Court argument next week on the immunity case, which is what Jack Smith is bringing here in D.C.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Well, that's what I just wanted to, because I mean, it's terrible that he can't go to his son's graduation, but his case for immunity will be literally before the highest court in the land, and he's got to sit here and endure the preliminary days of this ridiculous Alvin Bragg thing instead of appearing at the Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's really ridiculous. And by the way, there's another Supreme Court this morning that I'm going to, and this is the one whether the actual charges that they made against a lot of the January 6th defendants, namely obstructing a congressional proceeding, whether that law is even constitutionally allowed to be applied to the January 6th defendants. And if the court rules in their favor, in the January 6th defendants' favor, and we'll get that ruling by June, that's 2 of the 4 counts that Jack Smith brought against Trump here in D.C., so that case is going to fall apart as well.
Yesterday was the first day of jury selection. Nobody was selected. Half of the jurors, by the way, I have to say, good for them, actually admitted that they could not be impartial on this. One argues that it could be even a higher number. Who can be impartial about Donald Trump at this point, anywhere, especially in Manhattan?
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, they asked for the case to be removed to, say, Long Island or Staten Island, where he might have a better shot. There's no way he can get a fair trial here. Like I said, both the jury is heavily a Democrat, the judge is biased, both with him and his daughter. But if we have 1 or 2 jurors that vote acquittal, then you'll have a hung jury.
Well,
and then go ahead. Yeah.
That's all you need, because it's a criminal trial.
Yep.
Real fast, we're speaking with Paul Kamenar, by the way, lead counsel at National Legal and Policy Center. This really isn't about getting a conviction. This is about politics, right? Even if there is a conviction, there's so much to be overturned here. I've heard from so many legal scholars, Democrats and liberal legal scholars as well, who have analyzed this. I remember when the charges came down a year ago, Paul, this was the weakest of all the cases. But since this is the only one that seems to be making it into a courtroom before the election, suddenly everybody's on board saying that this is the most important trial in the history of mankind. They don't really care if this gets overturned. This is really just about trying to damage Trump in the election cycle, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. He should be on the campaign trail. But ironically, this persecution that he's enduring with these 4 criminal trials is actually solidifying his base. And you're getting independents that say, look, this is something that's totally unfair, and they're breaking to Trump. And Trump is, of course, leading in the polls right now. So this design by the Democrats to go after Trump to get him out of the race is backfiring on them.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Lead counsel, National Legal and Policy Center. That's NLPC.org if you want to dive deep into their website, NLPC.org. Good morning, Paul. Thank you. It is
Thanks for having me.
7:15 WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the 5s with Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center. Mostly sunny skies today in the Washington region with a high of 75 degrees. Tonight, mostly cloudy, overnight low 55. Tomorrow, look for some showers rolling in, maybe a thunderstorm late in the afternoon, high around 70 degrees. And then Thursday, partly sunny, chance of showers, a high near 76. Right now, we're looking at 58 degrees at Ronald Reagan National Airport, 716.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
From the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939. Weekdays 9 to noon, The Chris Plant Show.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
We had an exchange yesterday, a couple of exchanges between Peter Doocy and John Kirby there in the press briefing over the attacks, the act of war that Israel had to endure at the hands of Iran, and the administration's insistence that Israel do nothing in return. Here's a little bit of what happened yesterday afternoon.
Has President Biden considered maybe beefing up the public Iran posture to be more than just one word?
You're referring to don't.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about.
And they did it anyway.
And let's talk about what we did, Peter. Let's talk.
By the way, real fast, I do love Doocy. Do you think maybe our public posture toward Iran should be more than just one word? Yeah, this was Biden on Thursday, just 48 hours before the attack was launched.
Mr. President, to Iran in this moment.
Don't.
Are American personnel and assets at risk, Mr. President?
I think that they made it just the one word because he can deliver that without having to check his cards. Yeah.
Well, apparently also, Larry, I heard some reports that he said that after they already knew that it was going to happen. That he said don't after he knew through back channels that Iran was going to strike.
Right.
So they set themselves up for failure. They knew. What is this?
Not only did they know it was going to happen, but according to the reports, they gave a tacit approval to it. They said, fine, but keep it within these parameters, kind of thing. All right, we'll pick up where we left off with Kirby.
Let's talk about Saturday night. He made it clear that he didn't want to see escalation in the region.
And
let me finish. He added military resources to the region right after October 7th. And then when we had an inkling that this kind of thing was coming, he added even more military resources to the region. More destroyers that were capable of shooting down ballistic missiles, a fighter squadron that was able to shoot down drones. And that's what we did. So you can talk about the don't word all you want, but let's talk about what did happen. And what did happen was Iran utterly failed. And if I'm sitting in Tehran right now, I'm betting that President Biden takes it pretty seriously when he says don't escalate. He's going to act to make sure that you can. And they didn't.
That's not what don't mean. I'm sorry, did we all interpret don't as don't try it because we will thwart it and that'll be the end of it and then we'll walk away as pals? Don't try it because we'll make sure Iron Dome is solidified so nobody gets hurt and then we'll all shake hands and I'll give you $10 billion more afterwards. That's what don't means? Right. Who knew? Boy, that's some nuanced 4D chess right there.
Well, he could only say don't. He forgot the second part of his...
That's right. Really hard to get it all out there. Kirby then challenged about the billions of dollars that have been unfrozen to give to the mullahs so that they can attack people.
Now that we know that the Iranians do not listen to President Biden's public warnings, is there any regret here about unfreezing billions of dollars for Iranian leaders during the president's administration?
What unfreezing are you talking about?
He unfroze billions of dollars
for Iranian leaders?
Yeah.
Really? I don't think so.
Okay,
so first of all,
yeah, this is where he goes on to say, no, that any money that was unfrozen, it was for humanitarian aid, and they can only use it for humanitarian purposes. Let me just, first of all, Anthony Blinken last year in October conceded that everybody knows that Iran uses their treasury, uses their money to fund terror activities. All right, so right there, I don't know, maybe I'm naive, but we should probably have sort of, what do you want to call it, a rule, a guideline? Oh, what the hell, let's call it a law. Let's have a law on the books that says that not $1 gets freed up to a country that we know is engaging in terrorist activity. That's why we have sanctions.
That's right.
It's the reason you sanction Iran. And we've had those sanctions, but Biden, he's like waving sanctions like he's a freaking princess at the Rose Parade. That's how much he's waving. He's just sitting on the float waving, doing the Queen's wave, and he waves all of the sanctions away. And this lie, well, that's humanitarian aid.
Yes,
If we're giving them money for so-called humanitarian aid. That's money that they don't have to spend to feed their people or to clothe their people or to give their people medical care. And if they don't have to give their people food or medical care or whatever else you want to call humanitarian aid, that allows them to fund terrorists. Here's the idea. We don't give them any money and allow them to have any money. We squeeze them. We isolate them. Yes, the people of Iran will suffer, but then they will be so angry that they will rise up and they will overthrow their tyrannical government because they're tired of just starving in the streets while Iran is paying for terrorists. That's how it works. That's how it's always worked. That's how it worked with the Soviet Union, by the way.
That's right. That's how it worked under the Trump administration.
And that is how it worked under the Trump administration. You're right. And yet they're clueless. They're 100% clueless. And it's frustrating to watch because...
Well, you talk about, the people in Iran will be so angry, that they'll do something. Well, maybe in this country watching this, voters will be so angry that they will put a stop to this nonsense under the Biden administration. Let's hope, Larry.
Let's hope. And let's hope we get an administration who... I want to repeat what I've been saying for quite some time now. When Trump came into office, he cut off humanitarian aid to Hamas because he saw that it wasn't humanitarian aid. It was being used to lob rockets into Israel and to undermine our ally. Trump cut that off. Trump enforced the sanctions regime against Iran, and more importantly, through Rick Grenell, our ambassador to Germany, he put pressure on our European allies to stop doing business with Iran, to stop buying oil from them, and isolating that country. He also sent a clear signal to the Middle East by moving our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and said to the entire region, if you want to be friends with the U.S., you better figure out your relationship with Israel because they are our ally. And if you want to do business with us, you work it out with Israel. And within 2 years, we have the Abraham Accords. Within 2 years, we had Arab nations suddenly signing peace agreements with Israel. Then Biden gets in there and reverses all of it, all except for the embassy because he knew he couldn't get away with that. But he reversed all of it. And within 3 years of Biden reversing everything Trump had done, we've got over 1,000 dead Israelis at the hands of Hamas. We've got Iran lobbing missiles at Jerusalem. And now the only message we've got is to further isolate not Iran, not the terrorists, but Israel, and to throw them under the bus. This is outrageous. And meanwhile, our children who are in the military wearing the uniform right now are getting alerts about all of this stuff and are thinking to themselves, am I going to be deployed now? And weirdly, one must wonder if we do deploy our military to the Middle East, whose side will they be deployed to defend?
Right.
That's where we are now. Because as of now, the only military that will be engaged from the United States will be there to build a pier for Hamas on Gaza's shore.
Yep.
It's completely upside down right now, and we need a commander-in-chief with clarity. We need a policy that people can understand, and November just can't come soon enough. All right, I'm going to end my rant now. This is what I get for filling in for Mark Levin last night. I just want to turn everything into a monologue. Get off the phone.
Now,
on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
It's now 7:36. It's O'Connor and Company. Coming up in our 8 o'clock hour at 8:05, we're going to check in with former Congressman from New York, Lee Zeldin, who, by the way, Julie Gunlock, I've heard is on the short list for Donald Trump as a running mate. He would not be too bad at all.
Maybe he will break news.
Moo!
Here on the morning show.
You know what? We're going to spend 10 minutes just asking him that question over and over again. Because I don't know. If I were you and I was going to be Donald Trump's running mate, I would want to announce it right here on this program.
On this program, on America's Morning Show.
Not a big rally, not a big, streaming event online. No, right here. This is where you're going to get them.
Fun conversation.
All right, maybe we'll ask him once. 8:35, Adam Credo, Washington Free Beacon, on the Biden administration's capitulation and partnership, it appears, with the mad mullahs of Tehran. All that is coming up. You and I are kind of foodies. We like our food.
That's right.
Although your foodie-dom has sort of graduated to basically you can cook better than any of these chefs, so you're just going to stay home and make the food yourself. I still like going to these like Michelin star restaurants and these like fancy places. You're done with it.
I'm a little tired of restaurant theater. and some
I
of
love
the
that stuff.
very high-end and high-end prices and stuff. I get a little tired of it. Right. I mean, honestly, the last time we did it, it was like 16 courses, and my husband and I were so bored by the end. We're just fantastic. Like, just give us a big bowl of bolognese and we'll be happy.
Right. Well, see, Gordon Ramsay sort of marries the two. He is a Michelin. He's got multiple Michelin stars in London and in New York, I believe. But he also, his food, like he has pubs as well. He has fish and chips places.
Yes.
He does very accessible food as well. I like Gordon Ramsay. I've always been an admirer of his. I know he's a TV personality, but he's the real deal, too, in terms of cooking. And his attitude is brilliant. And now the celebrity chef is dealing with a squatter problem. We've talked about squatters here in America. And, again, we use the term squatter. They are thieves. Yeah. This is grand larceny. Mm-hmm. If they had decided to break into your car and squat in your car, they would be arrested for grand theft auto. All right. And so I don't know why they can break into either your home or a place of business and just decide, I'm going to live here now. But now he's dealing with it with a London pub. So he was preparing to hand over this closed bar while finalizing a multi-million-dollar deal with new partners when a squatter gang broke into the bar and hotel location. It had been closed, right? I mean, shut down, getting ready to have new ownership. And they just broke in and started living there.
They boarded themselves into the building.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is all according to the Daily Mail, by the way, who's got exclusive video of what they've done here. A source told The Sun that this has been a nightmare for the chef. Quoting now, they've boarded themselves in the building. They're slowly taking over the place, leaving their crap everywhere and brazenly telling locals this is now their home.
Well, and
they've glued tight all the locks and are cooking up a storm in the kitchen.
Yes. They've glued themselves into this place. They're cooking like crazy. He probably had some pretty nice food stuffs in there.
I want Gordon to come in there and start screaming at them about what lousy cooks they are.
Are you an idiot sandwich?
Right.
This isn't your place.
Exactly. Right. You donkey!
Throw around a couple F words. He's good at that.
Raw! This is raw! The group says the 2012, I love this. These are these laws that the left pushes through in places like England and New York and D.C. The 2012 Legal Aid Sentencing and Punishment Offenders Act, which sounds right. You know, hey, who doesn't want to vote for the Legal Aid Sentencing and Punishment Offenders Act?
Pushed through by radically left NGOs.
That's right. Allows for non-residential building occupation to not be a crime. And they have the right to be there.
I love the word non-residential building occupation, which means breaking into someone's legally owned
place of business,
operation,
warehouse, whatever,
residence, whatever.
London's Metropolitan Police reportedly are calling it a civil matter and will take action where appropriate. In other words,
how nice.
The only way to deal with it is you got to sue them to get out.
Good luck. No, that's translation. You're on your own. You're on your own.
Well, and listen, at least the infestation, I don't know, does George Soros hire prosecutors in London as well? Does he? I didn't realize that was a thing, too. But, boy, the tentacles have a wide reach.
This is unbelievable. 2 Instagram accounts, Autonomous Winter Shelter and Camden Arts Cafe, are encouraging people to pop down to a new squatter community space in Camden where there's a free art cafe. So they are actually advertising this as some sort of free restaurant. It's
absolutely brazen. Come on down, hang out. We'll bring some food. We'll cook it up for you.
Bring your artwork and put it up in the cafe. Oh, my God.
This is Marxism at its finest because, listen, ultimately, one of the most fundamental rights that we know we were born with is our right of possession of things that we own, of our property, of our home, of our land. It's one of the great things about the founding of our country, and there's a certain amount of this in England as well, although they don't quite get it. They still think that some people are tenants on the Lord's land or the king's will. They're not citizens there, they're subjects. Yeah. But still, it's this fundamental inherent understanding that if I pay for this, it's mine. And you are not allowed to come in and abuse it and steal it from me. And now it'll be interesting to see how Gordon Ramsay, because listen, Gordon Ramsay is never really worried about being politically correct, right?
Well, and again, this is what we talked about earlier about these, pro-Hamas protesters shutting down a bridge and the police just letting it happen.
Yep.
And sort of getting involved after, traffic's backed up for 6 miles. This again is breaking the social contract. So
that's right.
We're going to have vigilantism. If they're not going to act, people are going to have to take it. You're going to
take it into your own. When the police say, "Hey, this is a civil matter," it's like, okay, it may be a civil matter, but it might not be handled in a civil way.
Right.
7:43, and there's. It's 7:49 now on O'Connor and Company. I like superhero movies as much as the next guy, except, of course, the Marvel Universe has gotten so woke that most of the movies are unwatchable unless they involve Chris Pratt, I think, these days.
Yeah.
And, by the way, I'm not alone. But unbelievable, the box office tank job that those movies did this past year.
Yeah.
And one of the problems is that there's, how many versions of these movies? I mentioned it yesterday. I have seen the Batman origin story so many times now in my life. Same with the Spider-Man origin story. It's just like enough, right?
It's boring.
But if you go back to the first Spider-Man movie that really utilized CGI and sort of opened up this new era of superhero movies, it was the one starring Tobey Maguire. You'll remember in the it must have been the early 2000s, if I remember right. Maybe even the late 90s. It was a great series of movies. The first 2 were great. The third one was a little sketchy. Kirsten Dunst, you'll remember, was the love interest in that first. Remember the iconic moment where Spider-Man in his mask, it's raining, he had just saved her life, and he's
drops down.
She drops down upside down, and she pulls down the mask, and get very sexy scene. Right?
Yes, definitely.
Really good stuff. Who knew that at that very moment Kirsten Dunst was in such a white-hot rage of anger and spite because Tobey Maguire was making more money than her.
Just
I kid you not. Kirsten Dunst, she has she's in the Civil War movie, which I don't think is doing very well. And she was complaining in an interview about the fact that she didn't have equal pay with Tobey Maguire. The movie's called Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Tobey Maguire is playing Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
She is the love interest. She's in like 30% of the movie. Yeah. Maybe, to be generous, 50%.
Yeah.
And she thinks she should get paid. Here, listen to her whining.
Hopefully the way I carve my path will help other, actresses. But I definitely grew up in a time with major pay disparity between the lead actor and myself, even though I had been in Bring It On and he hadn't. You know what I mean? I had more success in my box office than he did. And I was 17. I'm still learning. When you're that age, I'm still learning my taste in film. I didn't even think to ask. I didn't even know there was a place to challenge it. That's how it felt at 17.
Okay, first of all, she needs to stop smoking. Secondly, he shouldn't have saved her life. He should have let her fall off that bridge. Seriously.
Screw MJ.
Yeah. Can she shoot webs out of her wrists? No.
Well,
no, she can't.
Also, get an agent.
Yes.
Maybe. I didn't even think to ask. Something tells me she's had an agent. Wasn't she like in that vampire movie with Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt when she was a child actress?
Yes.
So she's been around the business a bit.
Yeah, playing a sexually curious 11-year-old. Not creepy.
And by the way, Tobey Maguire, the first time he was ever on my radar before Spider-Man, he was the lead in The Cider House Rules, which was a critically acclaimed movie based on the John Irving novel. In fact, he might have even been nominated for an Oscar for that.
I think he was.
I know that Michael Caine won the Oscar for Cider House Rules. Don't tell me he was a nobody.
Exactly.
Kirsten Dunst.
And she's like,
and this was not a Kirsten Dunst vehicle. It wasn't about her or her character.
Right.
It is such,
It's just the need for victimization.
They'll
find anything. This is this incredibly, to use their language, privileged white woman, right? And, having to find her way of being a victim. That's all
right. She is just like the poor woman who has to go to work every day and sit at a cubicle and know that guy next to her is getting paid 20% more than she is. No, honey, you're an actress. You were in a movie. Yep. Your life ain't so bad.
And you were a co-star. You were not the lead. You were not Spider-Man. I mean, the title Insider House Rules or like a movie that has, several actors. You might go, oh, what was her role? This one was actually called Spider-Man. And you didn't play the Spider-Man.
The entire story was shot through the lens of the love interest of Mary Jane. Yeah, there you go. It's 7.